What's going on, guys? Just showing some new stuff here that I got from Mexico today. Yeah, Roddy, exactly. This thing is massive, extremely thick, really cool. Yeah, I actually brought out all the different handbags that I've got from Ojuelos, so you guys can check them out. Well, Trippy, I there's a lot of depictions of Anunnaki-looking beings on these pieces, as well as different, types of angelic-looking beings. But here, I'll show you. That definitely gives the Anunnaki vibe in some ways, but everything looks different, but resembles the same thing. With the handbags and the pine cones and interesting staffs and bird beings. And this looks pretty Sumerian here too. Um, Day, I think that there was many experiments done, and I think there's many experiments being done on this planet right now. There's not really a lot of good reason why we have so many species of plants and animals, and the way it's being guided and, you know, led along in terms of our development and so much else in terms of our environment. And uh, so I think there's definitely help from aliens or some sort of advanced intelligence. But I think what we're starting to see now is like more of a biblical reference and seeing the dog face and the bird beings as well as angelic beings, transdimensional portals. You see a lot of the Eye of Ra, the Ankh. So it's really just bringing it all together, um, in my opinion. And I think we were created by God, as the Bible says, but I think that the aliens are involved with this, and what an alien is still to be determined specifically. Are these just intelligence of the higher intelligence, the transdimensional? Yeah, thanks, Robbie. Now, having all these carvings and like learning about history just so I could try to fathom what I was seeing here has been a real delight in terms. I've learned so much about Egyptian and Sumerian. Even the native stuff is really what I'm diving into now. Yeah, I save all these, Robbie. In fact, I'll post this one on YouTube for sure. I'll post this one right away. But if you go to YouTube, you can subscribe at Alien Carvings, and I've been posting quite a few of them there. This is all from Mexico, Prosper. It's sold as modern art. The government does not say that this is legitimate. It's legal to own for this purpose. But there was things about it that just didn't vibe. And all the people down there are saying they dig it up out of the ground. They send videos. Like there's documentaries from Gen 6 Productions on the digging of these things. They use georadar, all kinds of equipment to find this stuff. It's really quite interesting. Um, I'm just trying to understand it for sure. I don't really have the answers specifically on this. I've got a lot of evidence that says that it could be authentic, but it's hard when the government's saying it's not, and modern science won't. I mean, I've offered PhDs quite a bit of money to do testing and stuff, and they don't want anything to do with it. Like, it's just like a taboo topic, and so it's kind of like the whole Area 51 thing. Like, if you push too hard at it, it pushes back. And I think that's kind of what we see. Yeah, life. I think a lot of people have, done their homework, and books like this here, the Book of Knowledge, goes into extreme detail about what I think we're seeing here, and it's a really really good read if you haven't checked it out. Too much power, yeah, it's good, Prosper. It's hard to read. I highly encourage digesting it slowly, but once you grasp it, it's just incredible. JJ does a lot of speaking too. He has audio stuff that's really, really beneficial. I find this piece to be pretty interesting because it's got the Mercury symbol here. I'm not sure what this is supposed to be with the pyramid on the top. It's not a planet I recognize or a symbol. They're from Mexico. I've been researching them for the last 2 years. I saw an episode of America on Earth with Scott Waltar. My buddy had brought back a couple of these from the Gem Show down there in Tucson. And I looked at it, and I've collected carvings for years. Never seen nothing like this. So, yeah, the way I came across it, I immediately just started researching it. I went to every website. I wrote out to all the aliens people and the people that have these TV shows, trying to get answers, and it was really, really hard. Harder than I expected. I figured it would be kind of a one phone call thing. I finally got lined up with Linda Moulton Howe. We spent a fair amount of time on this topic. Then COVID hit and certain things changed, and it just hadn't amounted. She wanted to send an expedition down, and yeah, it's really tough part of Mexico. You can't really just send a camera crew down there safely. It's really, really dangerous. Some parts are worse than others. Yeah, forbidden knowledge. That's what it seems to be. Yeah, I am not from this planet. I really wish I could craft this well. I don't think I have enough time to craft all these objects in my lifetime, though. I mean, these are all stone. A lot of them are gilded with gold and luminescence. I'll show you something here kind of cool. Check this out. Just turn my light off so you can see this. This stuff really, glows too. RMS, I said the same thing, so I respect your initial opinion, but after doing 2 years worth of research, I have evidence that suggests it's definitely possible that these are authentic pieces, and that's carbon dating, thermoluminescent dating. The most recent one here, we found this gold. I'll show you. Actually, I don't know if I have any down here that's gilded specifically, but we found this type of gold. It's a leaf, but it's done gilded, and so it's only we just got the XRF tests back, and it's only about 75% metal, and so it's gilded with a resin and a clay, and yeah, it's something that they did in ancient Egypt. This is kind of a weird piece. It has a yellow look to it. It's pretty wild, though. I mean, this is some serious art at the minimum to be delicately, you know, designed like this. It's not just a spackle and a paint. Like, there's serious texturing and effort done to make it do things like this that I'm showing. Like, with the some parts of it are, not. It's like texturing, I guess. But yeah. Energy is interesting. Sometimes I get really weird. Like I'll feel like a shooting going through my body, and it gets kind of like lightheaded and a whooshy-headed feeling. Pretty much, you just feel like you need to get away. Um, it's happened a few times. This piece is interesting here. It changes to blue. Yeah, art. It's definitely something. That's for sure. I hope to find out exactly who made this stuff, or at least some more details about it in the future. At least we've got some lab testing and stuff going on right now. No internal messages. No. It's all from Mexico, Jeffro. I'm sorry if I didn't get back to your guys' comments. Feel free to ask again. I was doing the light thing, so I couldn't really focus on that many things. Show you guys the back of this one. This is an interesting piece here. It's I'll show you the crack here. So it's been repaired, but it wasn't repaired modernly. The glue on this piece, it's the they use a really specific type of glue. Let me show here on this piece. You'll see it. You can see like the red coming through, and it looks well here on the mosaic. You can really see it. Like you can see all the white chunks and stuff. This red stuff is glue that they made to put this together. That's where the carbon dating comes from, and I've seen the carbon dates anywhere from 10 to 20,000 years old. Most of them fall in the 10 to 15,000 range. Yeah, no, the Prosper. That's it's funny you say that because Syria is really an interesting place. So I met with an archaeologist, and he does work in the Holy Land, and Israel acquired part of Syria because of Mount Hermon, and man, the Mount Hermon story is really something else. I was just blown away by this guy's knowledge, and he said the Nephilim and whatnot is absolutely a real thing. He has bones of giants, and um, so I mean it ties it together. Mount Hermon was a pact place where they made this pact, and it was the 200 fallen angels. And it might have been on America Unearthed, Stonk. It might be on something new too. This is starting to really pick up a lot of traction. The Gen 6 documentary is about to be released, and hang on, this thing's really heavy. I'm going to trade hands here. But yeah, I imagine that they're trying to figure out how to disclose this without destroying everything that we have. Yeah, that is probably why they went to Iraq, why they went to Afghanistan, why there's so much in Africa. If you look at Aleister Crowley's work and what he looked through from the war treasures of France, he created the tarot deck and learned so much about Egypt and things. It's, this witchcraft and black magic and hex and all these dark magics, I think definitely came from somewhere, and the way they're practiced is not an accident. That's interesting, Screw. Yeah, there's tons of portal depictions of things coming in and out of portals, devices that look like portals. It's pretty strange. Some interesting whistles. I think, Phi, that this is actually connected to it. The way that they described the Grand Canyon, Kincaid back in the early 1900s is what I'm assuming you're talking about. Um, you know, they said giants and Egyptian and symbols and languages that they'd never seen, and sarcophagi and certain things that line up with this exactly. Yeah, Trim. I think there's reason why Ezekiel and giants and Enoch were removed. If you read them, it's there. Especially after reading the Pistis Sophia. Highly encourage the Pistis Sophia. Yeah, I'm not wearing gloves. The last time I wore gloves, I broke a piece. So, um, if you watch the way that these things are dug out of the ground, um, it's really sad, But these things have survived in the ground for 10,000 plus years, possibly. If that's the case, the oils on my hand are definitely not going to smudge the ink. Obviously, if it was art or something that had paper or papyrus or anything of that nature, 100%. But this type of stone, I'm not super concerned about it. Yeah, it's pretty wild. Here, I'll play one of these whistles. You can check this out. You'll feel the energy from these. Oh, sorry. I'm not very good at the piccolo type. I got to learn how to adjust my breathing better. This big one here, it's really quite amazing. It weighs about 30, 25, 30 pounds, I would guess. That one's a little easier to play. No, I believe it. Definitely some harmonic tunes. I put them through a guitar tuner just to see, and they were like right on the money. Thanks, Trippy. Speaking of Trippy, this pipe is just that. It's a pipe. It's interesting. So they've dated the resin from these pipes and looked at it, and the dates were matching the glue, and they also um, found that it was tobacco. With the fact that the dates of that resin matched, is really a good sign that there is a plausibility that this stuff is authentic. The gold as well is a really easy way to tell that there's more to the story, because when we test it, we're finding radium, we're finding ruthenium, we're finding palladium. Um, what was the other one there? Oh, geez. But some really rare earth elements, and yeah, oh gosh, I don't know. Yeah, the gold, like most of it's done in a leafing manner. Like you can see, like this egg here is all leafed. Yeah, it tuned like right on notes. I mean, it was in tune. I can't remember. Each whistle's different in terms of what letter it was, but you test this gold, and everywhere you touch, if you touch here, it might be 11 carat. You touch here, it might be 15 carat, uh, and there's different materials in all of it, which doesn't add up to the fact that it's a modern 24 karat leaf that you order off of Amazon or something. It would definitely be a custom blend, and to find radium in the gold is also quite rare. It does happen, but it really limits where the gold could be from and when it was mined, unless they have a supply of that. Yeah, I did buy them. It's legal to own them because the government says they're all fake. So I kind of just wanted to see, I get people offering me money all the time for these things, and I know what their value is as carvings, because I've collected carvings for a long time, and You put together a stone mosaic like this in your garage, and you're going to be able to get thousands of dollars for it because it's a serious piece of artwork. You know what I mean? Um, it's the same with like this cross. I got this cross, and now this isn't solid gold, but this is all gilded in gold or leafed in gold. And you can see here, but to cover this whole thing is way more than what I paid for it. And it's also interesting because it tests a different alloy depending on where you tap it. Yeah, I think so too, Trippy. Like, there's a really good chance, uh, or at least a higher chance. And when I say a high chance, I'm saying at least a 1%. And people look at me kind of funny when I say that, but if this stuff is a 1% chance that it's real, it needs to be researched by real scientists. And right now it's just going to private collections and nobody's saying anything about it. And the 1% is here, in my opinion, so that's why I'm researching it myself. Because, I mean, worst case, I end up with a lot of really cool pieces of art and I sell them all and whatever, I learned something. But uh, so far it's been the complete opposite. Yeah, living. It's definitely an ankh with the jed pillar and the bent neck staff on the other side, and it's kind of got that iron cross look too, similar to this as well, which is interesting to see these shapes come out of there. You know, yeah, it's really fun to study. Some of the stuff like this. This is called an astrolabe. They found a lot of these in Samaria that were, 4,000, 5,000 years old from cuneiform type text, or not text, but tablets rather. And so it's interesting. But you're able to input this into some supercomputer because they were able to translate it. It's got all the different constellations shown, and you can see the North Star is here in the center. So we should be able to see, yeah, an astrolabe, yep. Um, we should be able to see how long ago the sky looked like this. So not an easy thing to falsify if it's exactly some of the dates that we're seeing on the carbon dating, right? You would have to have a pretty amazing mathematics to understand where the sky would have been at that time. Um, Astronomy is not easy, so I mean it's easier now than it used to be because you've got all these apps, but still. I've been trying to do astrophotography, and it's been a chore. Getting to look at the galaxies is not as easy as I wanted it to be. Was Jesus born on 9/11? I don't think so, Miss Ben, but maybe. I think it was more around April or something, is what they say. It's kind of an interesting topic you say that because it's like, why do we celebrate it on a pagan Roman holiday? Uh, it's kind of weird. Yeah, absolutely, Trippy. Thanks for all the love, man. I don't know what would happen if they came back as real artifacts at this time. I mean, I've had customs. My friend, he sent, like $200,000 to Mexico to buy these pieces, and the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI raided him, and they took his phone, but they didn't touch any of the artifacts at all. And they just thought he was doing drugs or guns or something of that nature because of the amount of money he was sending to Mexico. And so it's really a tough topic. I mean, I would want this stuff to be in a museum if it could be. That's where I'm at with it. If I have to make the museum, I will. If they want it for theirs, you know, I'm down with that. Like, if they admit this stuff's real, I'll give it all back in a heartbeat because then I know the truth. The truth shall set us free, right? I mean, this is major into our origin and our history. This shows so much DNA manipulation, angelic things. It brings so much light to the Bible and to the different ancient texts. Like, the information's priceless. Yeah, no, I think you're totally right, Christian. And that's why I'm pushing pushing the topic in a respectful way, just trying to document it at least, because I just don't want to lose the information. It's all from Mexico. This piece here is hollowed out here. You can put a light in here, and then the eyes light up. The mouth is open as well. Modern chicken scratch, yeah. Well, I would love to see you make some of this stuff. I don't really touch that topic, Prosper, because there's too many variables at play. I think that our perception of the world is round. Could it be flat? Like video games have a perception that they're endless, but they really, they're just the same background over and over again. Like there could definitely be that type of stuff into our programming. I mean, it's some advanced technology that we're dealing with here. But I think there is a space and there is a perception that this world is round in terms of physics, inertia and orbit and gyroscopes. You definitely could go down a list and be like, yeah, it does seem like it's round, right? It does seem like it's spinning. Yeah, they don't pay enough. The text it's unknown. It's so crazy. We've documented over 10,000 of these characters. None of them repeat. Like, there's really no easy way. I bought this piece here just because it had a recognizable symbol on it of Mercury, and I thought that was a big deal. It also has the infinity symbol in a pyramid with a trinity and another pyramid above it, and that I thought was also quite interesting as well. Going up into a keyhole, it's just kind of weird. I don't know, but pieces like this can be carbon dated, and it could lend valuable information. Yeah, I wish AI was better with language. There are people. So this has been testified to the Congress in Mexico, and since then they've started doing quite a bit of work in terms of supercomputers and people going into detailed research on this topic. So it's just now a matter of time for disclosure, right? And as we know, they've started trying to do all this half-assed disclosure in America, and that's not real. It's hand carved. Wait. So you're telling me it's usually someone saying like you got these things 3D printed, but you're telling me it's hand carved, but it's fake. I mean, you think you think someone's gonna hand carve all this for chump change? I just don't believe that. I mean, you got to understand this stuff is not expensive. Their government tells them it's fake, and people don't believe it. Just like that guy. So it's really funny. You go to Vietnam or Thailand and get some carvings over there, and I mean, geez, even stuff that was made weeks ago is not cheap. Lapidary equipment's not cheap. I mean, yeah, some might be. You can't really tell by the lines from your view, though, and that's the truth, man. I could get you pretty close, but I haven't been doing that. But when you look at these with like a scanning electron microscope, you will see that there's actually a burr, and there's no symmetrical, uh, lines on the side. When you use a bit, you'll get like a curvature or a symmetry on each side from the bit. You don't get that with these at all. This is a good example here. You can see a lot of the lines are not perfect and coming off of each other. And like you said, it's definitely done by hand. But to make all these pieces by hand I mean, people would have to be charging thousands of dollars for these items to do that and put that much effort into something, in my opinion, because it's serious effort. And then it's all hand drawn. And the reason I claim it like that, people don't understand. Well, yeah, it wouldn't take that long to make one of these. Correct. But to be good enough to make one of these without making any mistakes. That's what you have to think about here, because these images are on here to perfection. And on something like this, where it's a mosaic of hundreds of squares of stones put together with glue and then carved on top of, if you're sitting there finishing this up and you screw up, and the piece is ruined, right? I mean, it's not going to look as good as it does. So the master artisanship of doing this is through the roof. There are a lot of professionals. You're totally right, and we have found so many. So I don't want to dismiss what you're saying. I definitely can agree, and you're totally right. Some of these pieces in this room could absolutely be fake. I just study them, so I don't know for sure. I can only go off of what I've learned and what I've tested. And as far as the laser goes, 1319, the lab that I had look at it with the really, really high-powered microscope said that the only thing that they'd seen similar to the type of carving, and that it was the way that plasma cuts steel, because it left a burr at the top. Yeah, I agree, Q, and that's why I collect them too, because it's like even as modern art, I have affinity and respect for this. Um, we test them with a lot of different methods. Thermoluminescence on the ceramic pieces. You know, this red adhesive here can be scraped out, and there's organic material in it that can be carbon dated. The pipes have resin sometimes in there, and that can be scraped out and dated. So far, those three date ranges have all synced up, which would be really, really complicated to do unless you had, in your backyard a carbon 14 testing machine. But that's really uncommon. I mean, it's millions of dollars and 2,000 plus square feet to do so. Um, so it's interesting. I agree. I am. There's so many different techniques here that it's like the whistles, these boxes. These boxes are really interesting to me because um, they have all these pits on the surface. But if you break one in the middle of the stone, it's all just a white stone. So it leads me to think that they could have been baked. And if that's the case, these boxes may be thermoluminescent tested as well, which could lead us, with a lot of concrete information. Yeah, let me go back to the ball here. The ball is one of my favorite pieces. That's what I was showing, and someone asked what one of your most profound pieces was, and that ball is right up there because it's just to make the few $100s that I was charged for this piece, to make that back on this much effort with these many inlays, and the inlays are really interesting as well. I believe it to be blue jade. Um, I did a lot of searching to try to figure out what stone it was, and no, they're from Mexico, and this piece here is from Ojuelos, Jalisco, and pieces like this here are from Tula Hidalgo. I thought azurite as well, but the hardness of it is quite a bit harder. I thought it was resin and fake at first, but then on this piece that's this mosaic, I thought that was one of the reasons I bought it. I thought I was going to be able to prove that it's BS, but it's not the case. And yeah, I'll whistle again. Pokemon. Yeah, it outdates the Mayan or Aztec by 5,000 years based on the dates that we've seen on those type of testings that I was just mentioning. Between 10 to 20,000 years. I wish 30. This is a functional whistle here too. The detail on some of this stuff too is really just. I mean, it's museum quality piece. Yeah, the skulls are whistles. This one here, and you can see the eyes are the the part you play. I apologize. I don't really show my face too much on here at this point until things are a little bit like more known about it, and I can confidently talk about this stuff, face to face with people. I hope that day is soon. I think we're getting there, but then again, maybe not. We're launching these $800,000 missiles at weather balloons, and I don't know if we're really getting there. Yeah, I thought the same thing, Nisa. I thought I could prove it to be false so easily, um, and I encourage you to try. Same Dragon, please prove these things to be fake because I've tried for the last 2 years, and at this point, I just try to bring awareness to it to people like yourself that can prove it one way or another because I can't. I mean, it's really tough to do. I thought it would be just as easy as calling up Giorgio or one of these people off the aliens shows, and boy was I wrong. Yeah, I'm trying to, Dragon. I've spent $250,000 to try to prove it, and I'm going to continue to keep trying until I get there because there's some things here that are just slightly off or unique to the point where it's worth researching. Yeah, the Rosetta Stone would be so incredible. Unfortunately though, just like the Egyptian language that was given by Thoth, I you know I don't know if because this is likely a pre-flood product, and if that's the case, is there any languages from that era that we still utilize that could be translated? And the only symbols that I'm finding are stuff like that Mercury symbol, you know, the the horoscopes and the different planets. That type of stuff seems to be consistent, but it's not enough to dissect even a chunk of it. Yeah, the gold is real, but it's not just real. It's I mean completely unrefined and contains many odd things. So someone had to sit there and tap every bit of that out by hand out of nuggets, which is really odd to do on a piece that you're trying to mass produce or sell for cheap on the fake market, right? The only reason someone would do all these extra things is if they were done a long time ago and you were digging it out of the ground and just trying to make a quick buck. Like that's pretty much what I've gotten it down to. Like the glowing that I'm showing right now, the people down there did not know about this. Like I showed them this. I sent them lights that I have in my hand just so they could see this because when I sent them pictures, they were blown away. And and it wasn't just one or two pieces that did this. I mean, as you're seeing, it's all these different glowing things, and so the fact they didn't know about it and the fact that they didn't try to sell me with it is odd. I'll oftentimes ask for dig videos after I buy the piece, and they'll have it, which is crazy that they didn't send it to me first thing first. Like, oh, don't you want to buy this? Like just doesn't make sense. I came onto it. My buddy went down to the Tucson Gem Show, and he got a couple of these, and he knows I collect carvings, and he buys me opals and stuff down there for my wife. She cuts them and polishes them, and it just blew me away after I started digging into it. Yeah, I'll show you gold for sure. All right, let me get the meter too. Sorry, I took a drink. I don't want to lose my voice. I hope to be able to explain exactly why they glow soon. There's multiple reasons why they glow. Some of it's phosphorescence, some of it's luminescence, some of it's the type of rock, some of it's an inlay, some of it is a dusting. There's a lot of different things that make it glow. So the good news is some of it may have some organic material in there that we can date, and we're also reverse engineering it to see exactly what it is. The XRF only tells us maybe half of it or whatnot. That's what we're trying to figure out is what's mixed with the gold, what's mixed with the glowing material, because it's, yeah, just one thing at a time. These labs don't want to work. It's really, really hard. You pretty much have to lie to them and say you're testing something completely different just to get them to do the test. I mean, you tell them you've got some alien object from Mexico, they'll just hang up on you. If you could decode this stuff, I would pay you a lot of money. But you would have to support it with some sort of, you know, it's just like the cuneiform stuff that Stitchin did. Like he had to support that with his reasoning, and his reasoning was pretty darn good, and most people agree with most of it. But yeah, still we're not 100% sure, so it's crazy. Yeah, Rico, definitely DM me anytime, and we can schedule it up. And I went live with a couple people here recently, and it's too much fun. Can I do what? No, I can't do it right now. I apologize. Yeah, that would be great, Soul. I'm always down to talk to anyone that has a passion about trying to prove it one way or another. I don't care. I mean, I came onto this thinking it was all BS. I don't care. I'm down to float the bill too. Like, let's get some testing done. That's where I've been at. And so finally, I met a PhD level scientist that is working with us and has opened up their lab to us. So we're testing some of the bone skulls. I've got these crazy skulls. I'm up in Washington State. I'm gonna grab one of these skulls just to show you guys here. Hang on one second. I'll let you check this mask out in the meantime. Maybe. We've had a couple bone experts look at these, and it's a pretty interesting specimen. What's interesting is they found a similar skull to the Rhodope, or to this in the Rhodope Mountains there of Bulgaria, and um, back in 2001 they did a lot of testing on it, completely stumped scientists, and they couldn't identify what it was. I've now, we found 13 of these, so there's a good chance we're going to figure out what they are. See on the top of this, it's depicted with this squid-looking face. We think that that's the species in which this skull is. Um, what's really interesting is one of the PhD bone scientists said that it looks kind of like a cow in some respects if you were to take a cow skull, cut it really, really carefully. But he said that he's seen cow skulls done that way, and never was this internal part intact. He said this was extremely fragile, and he'd never seen it there. He also said that there was multiple holes here that weren't present on a cow, so he couldn't declare it to be a cow. And then we went on to another bone expert, and he was completely confused. At that time, we had more specimen to show him, and so now we're just waiting on the carbon dates, which should be here soon. And then at that point, we'll be able to see if it's worth doing a DNA test. But one thing at a time. Demonic is an interesting word. I don't know. There's light and dark depicted on this stuff. And, in some of the ancient texts, they said that we would find places where there was evidence of the fallen and the angelic experiments. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing. Yeah, sorry, I didn't. And also too, if you want to check out the skulls, David, go to our website, aliencarvings.com, and then click on the menu, and you'll see research topics, and bone skulls is on there. And I've got a bunch of really nice pictures on there of all the different ones. Yes, Cthulhu. I know, right? Reminds me of the Pirates of the Caribbean thing. It's interesting though because I've seen it depicted not just from Tula pieces but also from Ojuelos pieces, and so that's an interesting thing. Jizz, Giz, I started buying them off of eBay, and I found real ones and fake ones on there, and I think you're going to find that no matter where you shop. So, at least eBay has some sort of return policy. That was kind of my mentality when I started. I didn't want to get ripped off, and I bought stuff with returns so I could investigate it and see if I liked it first, essentially. And I think that was a really smart idea. But at this point now, I just look for certain things, like the red glue, for instance, that you see on these mosaics and these inlays. Um, it's something that I haven't ever found on a replica. So I don't have a scientific explanation of why this tri-field meter does this with these pieces. There's absolutely the second I touch it, it jumps up. Sometimes I got one that was like 200 the other day. Oh wow, yeah, there's 175. Pretty serious readings. Like I said, I don't know. I've tried it outside. I've tried different things to see if there was interference in the house here or something like that, but n- not not of the sorts. So. As far as the ritualistic stuff, yeah, absolutely. Hang on here. I'll show you like one of the pieces here that I would almost guarantee is a ritual piece. I don't even know really what to make it. It's like a type of agate, and I think this is turquoise. It's got the symbol of Thoth on it. Yeah, it's definitely an eye. Yeah, Wayne. Well, I mean, truth is you can't really tell that without a microscope or some sort of quality scan of some form because you can't see the symmetry based off of a zoomed out phone. And if I was to zoom in on some of this stuff, you're just not going to be able to tell if it was done with a chisel or whether it was done with a Dremel. I don't know why that. There we go. But there's just nothing there that's going to tell you that. So I'm not trying to argue with you, but I've looked at a lot of these with high-powered microscopes, and there's no way of saying that this is modern lapidary. It's definitely by hand. You can tell. Look at the line work and stuff. None of it's perfect. The symmetry's not perfect. Like look at these, for instance. This is really a good example. You can see this piece here and this piece here. Well, they're not the same, but they tried to be the same. There's just imperfections everywhere. Yeah, I don't really sell them too much, Trippy. I sell some of the smaller stuff and whatnot. Like I've got a lot of pieces in this room. I've got a lot of pieces in my, uh, safes and whatnot. So sometimes I buy too many and get rid of some of the smaller ones or whatever. But yeah, most of these big pieces, I just couldn't do it. And as far as the chakras go, I've been doing a lot of work with JJ Hertock's research and his knowledge regarding the chakras and the seven seals and I never did quite understand, but he explains about the overself and also about the 7 through 14 and the 14 through 21 chakras, and I had no idea. So I think when I was experiencing seven chakras being open, I failed to acknowledge that there could be more, and that's something that his work has really helped me with. This book's called The Book of Knowledge. And if you go to Amazon or something like that, they're going to try to charge you like $300 or $400. Just go to keysofenoch.org and you can order it directly from JJ for like $50. I just wanted to read this little script out here. All these marks here are different things that relate to these stones, but this one here, Enoch explained how the Brotherhood of Light established pyramids on certain planets in this solar system in relationship to Saturn, the key to the planetary table and density levels of other forms of intelligence operating within our solar system. These pyramids are built in a grid formation and are connected to chronometers, which measure the vibratory levels of consciousness on a given planet in units of 1,000 years. And, this book goes into really deep geometry and pyramids and chakras and stuff. JJ had an experience when he worked for Walt Disney as a professor. He's got 2 PhDs and a master's, and then he worked at the University of Arts down in Berkeley there with Walt Disney. He was doing studies with an Indian composer, and they were saying the sacred names in Hebrew and Sanskrit. And as he was doing that, he had an experience where he was brought up and he disappeared like physically for 3 days. And he came back with all this knowledge. He was just spewing it out and talked really high pitch and couldn't stop talking about it. His wife said that he'd never said anything like any of this before. And it's pretty interesting what he's wrote. He wrote this back in 1973, and what it talks about is so crazy to see these pieces now. Like, it's all predicted in here, 100%. It's the keys of Enoch.org, or the Book of Knowledge. Yep. It's deep, though. I'm telling you. You'll start reading it, and you'll just be like, it's so above most people's pay grade in terms of knowledge. It's taken me over a year of just trying to dissect part of it, and now it's starting to finally start to make sense. But yeah, I have the Keys of Solomon from the Aleister Crowley version. It's really interesting. A lot of rituals and things like that go along with this as well. keysofenoch.org, Michelle. It's really expensive on Amazon. JJ does not try to advertise this book. He doesn't put it out there. The knowledge that's in there is for people that seek it, not necessarily, he's not trying to push it onto people. It's extremely deep and connects on levels that I've never heard anyone speak on before, ever. He answered so many questions that I had that it just blew my mind. And it wasn't just some faith-given answer. It was with science and metaphysics, and gosh, it just made me happy to hear him speak it, Well, Walt Disney's an interesting character. He also worked with Don Buchla and Mort Subotnick, the guys that created the synthesizer and did the first electronic music, essentially. And Disney had a lot of interest in music and composure, and that's what JJ. He was a professor, but he was also a musician, and so he that's where he worked. And so these different things. He has a book called Music coming out that's going to go into the detail of some of the stuff on the synthesizer that they unlocked with these sacred names and chakras and those type of things. Yeah, definitely fallen and tricking people into worshiping them as gods is what's been going on for a long time. And I think it's what we're seeing now with the alien agenda in terms of disclosure. They're trying to make people believe that these aliens are, some advanced intelligence and that they're going to help us and they're going to earn our trust over time. And in reality, it's the devil, The Bible told us to watch who you trust unless they come in with the name of Jesus. And the thing is that we have to know the name of the Lord is prevalent to aliens too, like that to say that they created the universe is really hard fit. So it's interesting. And I was really against religion for my whole entire life. So for me to sit here and talk like that is it feels weird because I just, I'm not the type that tries to push that type of religion on people. But at the same point, like now it's becoming discernible with history. So yeah, you have to know your enemy. That's a great way to put that. I found this to be interesting here too. I'll show you the back of this guy here. Yeah, me too, Jess. I truly am. That's why JJ Hertuck, I give him so much thanks. I went and got to meet him here a few weeks ago and got to shake his hand and tell him thank you because, gosh, my whole life, no one had ever really sat down and explained it to me, and he did. It's all from Mexico, Elevated. Yeah, well, there's definitely some good energy and bad energy, Soul. I mean, I think we're seeing the things, it talks about the flood and all these abominations that had to be flushed out. And, this looks kind of like the guy off of Alien. I thought this to be fake at first when I seen it. And, um, but, yeah, there's many, many things of evidence now regarding these green guys that look to be authentic in many ways. Also finding this head as well, which is really similar in terms of the cranial structure of this beast. So, yeah, who knows? It's fun to research, though. I'll show you guys something here, too. A lot of people say it's the Freemason symbol, and I did research to find out where this symbol originated from, and it actually came from far further back. There's records of that symbol in the cuneiform um, uh, tablets. Man, it's the second time I messed up the tablets. Yeah, well, I think religion has been used because the corruption of the devil or the temptation, the same reason we do things like eat the chocolate bar when we know our cholesterol's high or whatever, right? Like we do things that we can't really explain, even though we house the intelligence to know better. And I think that's just where religion has faltered. I think the roots of these things are probably good, but so much corruption over the years and wars and yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, exactly, Kate. And Gen Chapter 6 is where this is all at. The people that are doing the documentary, the company is called Gen 6 Productions. The dates on the thermoluminescence, the carbon dates, the resin dates are all showing between 10 and 20,000 years. He is a prophet of our time, I think, or the closest thing we have to it. He doesn't like to be called that, I don't think necessarily, but if I had to say it, or if I had to say what people would write about him, 200 years from now after he's long gone and this is all over, that I would say he was definitely that person. After meeting him, especially, it's just I'm like I went down there for Easter and he rubbed the water on my forehead and blessed me for the Eucharist, and it's the first time I've ever received the Eucharist, and I I drank the wine and ate the bread like before everybody else. I didn't realize that you're supposed to wait, and I felt like such a tool. I was pretty nervous going up there, like JJ Hurtak, OG. Yeah, it looks to be that way, Jess, and it makes sense. I mean, you can see it in our fossil records. You can see it, 250,000 years ago. Things all of a sudden changed for the humans, and it changed hard and fast. And they've done supercomputer studies that would show like the probability of our Y chromosome mutating the way it did again, and it's such a far 10 to the 100 odd level thing that it's considered impossible. I find this to be interesting because it's like a planet and some sort of maybe device this thing's wearing on its head. Yeah, that's probable, Angel. Yes, they do. It's really unfortunate that so much is kept from us, and it's a proof now that they do keep so much, and it's sad. Metatron's Q here, and then there's 7 orbs around the Star of David, which is interesting. Um, or 7 stars total, or 7 circles total rather. Obviously the chakras, and then the overself. The geometry is really something else. I've really started, yeah, Kabbalah, yeah. It's all from Mexico, Michelle. Like the piece I'm showing right here is from Ojuelos, Jalisco, and that would be to your west of Mexico City area, northwest a little bit there. And then these pieces here come from Tula Hidalgo, which is where the Pyramid of Quetzalcoatl is. They've got those statues that are standing on top of that flat pyramid that look that one direction. And there's a story of Atlantis that actually links back to that. And Cambridge did a study here back in 2021 saying that the 2/3 of Tula is still buried underground, and that it's an archaeological epicenter, they said, in those exact words. However, still can't go dig there legally, you know. That's the whole problem with this. Like, in order to dig for this stuff, people are really either risking their business or they're using private property. A lot of it's done on private property, which is still technically illegal for them, but they do it anyways. It's a lot easier to hide. These things only fit in one way, so you really gotta know your stuff. Oh, I've not just heard it, CJ. We are now almost completely upon it. I think in the middle of June is when we'll fully be back in. Pluto's in a retrograde right now, so we're falling out of it a little bit, but we'll be back soon. And once we're there, I think this knowledge will come out. I think it's required that the entire solar system is enveloped in the age of Aquarius before we can start to be blessed by that knowledge. Yeah, user. I wake up sometimes and I mean it just doesn't even feel real. Like I just wait for the day that someone's going to be like, yeah, it's all fake. Like I really thought it was when I started, and I really just feel like it's going to happen someday because it's so far fetched. I mean, it's like some Indiana Jones stuff. I'm a guy I'm from Idaho. Like some guy from Idaho finds history. It just doesn't make sense. It's hard to believe. But there's a lot of people researching this, and it's not just me. I just decided to look closer at it. No, realize I definitely didn't. These are all being found in Mexico. Oh yeah, Rico here. I followed you. Sorry if I miss your comments or something. I try to read them all. These are pieces from Mexico, T-boys. Um, the piece that pulls me the most, OG, is the Jed pillar, and I don't keep it in here because the energy from it makes me feel really off um, when I'm around it. And what they show it being used for in Egypt is nonetheless another reason just to keep it wrapped up in the safe. But I'll bring it out here soon. Yeah, Mel, absolutely. That's congrats. It's a real gem. If you get confused or it gets complicated, don't be frustrated. It's really complex how it's wrote, and there's audio CDs that make it easier. If you add me, I will send you a Dropbox of some of them, and I find it easier to listen to them to break it down a little bit, and then I go and read it, and it makes a lot more sense. So let me here. I'll make sure and add you, Mel. GG. You're awesome, Trippy. This thing's trippy for you. It's definitely possible, Jess. At this point, I keep an open mind. Smithsonian's probably lying to us, just like the government. And there's things that we can't handle, and they're worried about things. And there's so much Semitic question and things of, you look back at and I'm not trying to separate this, but you look into history and see what happened with World War II, and then you also look at the Exodus in the Bible and what happened there in terms of, Moses left Egypt, and created essentially the modern day Judea religion. And it says in the Bible that when he left Egypt, he took all the knowledge with him. And that's a pretty powerful statement to be in the Bible. Why they included that, why it's still there. and what exactly he meant by that. And how did he get all that information from Egypt? It's pretty wild, you know? So he had to have either been really close to royalty or whatnot. So there's this connection. And you know, they say that he was found in a in the river or something like that. But Moses's grandfather, great grandfather actually was Noah, and then Noah's great grandfather was Enoch. And so when you look at the family tree here, and then you start going into other cultures and other things like, for instance, Horus, the this guy here. This is actually Apollo, which is Zeus's son, in the Greek. And the fact that these guys are connected between Greek and Egyptian, that tells me something. You know, mythology has some serious connections between cultures, even, which is seems far fetched to make that up and have everybody go along with, you know, Star Wars or Star Trek or something for the future. You know, it very well could have been Christian or some sort of, you know, it could have been a real boat, but they may have had advanced, you know, help to get it up and out of the whatever, you know. But it's pretty wild. I don't think they literally took two of everything into a wooden boat. That doesn't make sense, you know. No, I haven't. I'm going to screenshot that real quick, Red Rocker. I'm going to check that out. Well, Apollo was the Apollo is the Greek equivalent of Horus. If you go to Wikipedia and look up Horus, you'll see that down the way a little bit, it'll show the Greek equivalent on there, which is Horus. Yeah, I mean, are you just talking about the dirt on the pieces creative, or oh, I would almost be positive that there's ancient artifacts in Antarctica. OG, they found multiple wheelbarrows full of saber-toothed tiger tusks, and so there obviously was life and things on this land prior to the change that occurred. You know, absolutely, Angel. I definitely. It's all about the faith at this point, going with the gut. You know, that's the true symbol here is just trusting your gut, I think. And because it's just like on the Flintstones back in the day, you know, Fred had the angel and the devil show up on his shoulder and they they gave him the guidance of what decision to make. Well, it's funny, you know, because if you think of your pineal gland as a portal in your mind, and it's open and closed, and when it opens, you know, light or dark can come through it. That could absolutely be the temptation of addiction and all these things that we get, as well as the blessings and the prayers and the, you know, the light. I know after using psychedelic compounds like DMT, LSD, mushrooms, stuff like that in the past, that sometimes it can be a good trip and sometimes it can be a bad trip. And the bad trips are almost demonic. Like things can appear out of nowhere that is so, you know, something you've never seen, but it's deeply dark. And then other times it's the most beautiful thing in the world, the most just astounding awe that you'll ever experience, right? So I think there's something to that as well. And that's why people in multiple cultures do blessings and they burn incense, they say prayers, they do all these rituals to cleanse the area before times that the body runs into a point where the eye will open, you know? And I think that's why we do a lot of these rituals. As far as what was my best trip? Jeez, you know, one time I went to the zoo. That was pretty amazing. Um, but I think the most eye-opening trip for me was I'd never seen the movie Clockwork Orange before, and I don't advise to do drugs either, Angel. I mean, this is when I was a kid. I mean, it's been over 10 plus years ago for me, but it happened, and I didn't have any clue that it would impact me at this point in time. And but it did. It gave me a perception of leaving my body and understanding. what I was, that this was a vessel and I was a soul. And so, yeah, yeah, it's just crazy. But the Clockwork Orange was the weird one. I took some LSD. We watched The Wall first. I asked recommendations of movies that people suggested, and they said The Wall from Pink Floyd, and some people said Clockwork Orange. So we got these movies, and I got about 15, 20 minutes into The Wall and had to shut it off. I just was not vibing with that at all. And so then we fired up The Clockwork Orange, and man, I laughed so hard. It was the funniest movie I had ever seen, I thought at the time, and it was over before I knew it, and had to go eat immediately. And we got done scarfing down on some food, and watched it again, and it literally brought tears to my eyes. Like, it made me so sad to think that I had just watched this movie and laughed at it, and now it's this, And I'm not going to ruin it for anyone, but it's a pretty powerful movie. Stanley Kubrick is a genius, and he's an interesting fella. I acquired them all just by research, Matt. They are legal to own because of, and Mexico says they're fake. These are all just modern crafts that someone buried. They don't care if it looks old. They don't care if there's dig videos. They don't give a hoot about really anything because they wrote a letter in 2017 and it's posted on our website. And yes, agreed, Angel. Thank you. Talking about Clockwork Orange, Prosper. And yeah, the cross is an interesting thing. The symbol for Earth is a cross. You know how there's like this symbol here is for Mercury, right? Well, the symbol for Earth is a cross, similar to this. So I wonder. No, it's keysofenoch.org. One word, Michelle. I followed you too, Michelle. In case you can't find it, just message me. I'll send you a gift. I haven't heard of the Lost Luna Stone. No, I'm gonna screenshot it and look it up though. It would mess up a lot more than the Catholic Church, I think. I think it's way more than that, and that's why it's like this financially, as well as deeply emotionally on so many levels that people are just afraid that it's gonna. And I think they've done small studies, like just like those balloons and stuff. I think they use those times to try to test the economy to see, are these people ready for this yet? And I don't think they are. I talked to JJ Hertzog about that too, and that's what he said, that people just aren't ready and that the time will be here when the time is here. And um, that's what it says in the Bible. And it makes sense, even though it's really hard. I'm really, really just thankful that I could find this, and I'm really like thankful that sharing this is bringing it to other people, because there's really no hardly any websites or anything like that. Yeah, creative. That's interesting. Yeah, four sides of a pyramid. Hmm. Thanks, Todd. Yeah, we do need to deal with it one way or the other, because one way or the other, someone's being lied to and deceived, and that's what we need to find out. I did purchase them. I started purchasing them off of eBay, Matt, and then it just kind of spooled from there. I started asking for dig videos, and do you have friends down there that dig these things up? I really wanted to get into the research. I wanted to go down there. I worked with Linda Moulton Howe for a little while regarding the topic, and she wanted me to go down there with the camera crew, and it didn't work out with COVID and the pandemic and things, and then Mexico got really harsh in terms of kidnapping, and so getting insurance to send down there is just crazy. You really can't in Guerrero, Jalisco. Hidalgo is a little bit different, but it's still pretty tough. Ivan, I'm Idaho items for sale on there. There's the problem is nobody knows what's real and what's not. So you just have to go with your gut. If the piece speaks to you, Like I tell people, it's a 50-50. You can't guarantee anything at this point. The people that are making the fakes are doing a really, really good job. But there are things to look for, like the red glue and signs of age, and but it's tough. Thing is, though, it's art. I mean, if you like the piece, and these things are fairly priced. I mean, compared to other carvings in the rock and gem field, it's absolutely not a big deal. Yeah, yeah, that's it, Ivan. Yep. I don't have too much on there, just a few. Mostly the smaller stuff. I've got a couple semi-large pieces. I got too many in here. I mean, this table's full. Everything around here is just full of pieces. My safes are full. I've got 550 or so pieces, so it's just yeah. They all have, well, not all of them, but I would say a majority of them glow or have some sort of phosphorescent or luminescent effect. It's interesting because these pieces, how did they know if these pieces are real and they're 10,000 years old? How on earth did they know any of this? But my theory is that if it's showing angelic beings, angels are said to have halos. Also, the Anunnaki were said to produce a splendor or a vivid light. And if that's the case, then possibly that light contained the ultraviolet spectrum. And if that's the case, then that's why we're seeing this stuff glow. Matt, it really just depends on the piece. I mean, if anywhere from 50 to 5,000, I haven't seen too many pieces above the 5,000 price range. There's been a couple like that gold cross that I have, just because of the amount of gold that's on it and whatnot. But yeah, the shipping too. Like I've got a 450-pound table that was $1,700 just to ship it. So there are pieces that get into that range, but it's chump change for what it is if it is real. And even if it's not as modern art, like you look at what they charge for Egyptian resin replicas. I mean, it's sometimes hundreds of dollars for a piece of plastic. Yeah, the squid is really the. I actually talked with a marine biologist and showed her this, and she was just kind of blown away. She didn't have too much to say about it, but yeah, if you look up the rhodope, it's RHODOPE skull, Bulgaria, you'll find some really interesting things regarding this species, whatever it is. But that's the whole reason I started researching them. I would have not have guessed that it was a alien skull, and it may not be, but um, it stumped two PhD bone experts and a PhD geologist who specializes in fossil research. So he's never seen anything like it. Yeah, exactly. Like this guy here. I mean, if I saw this at a gem show, I don't care if it's modern. I would have paid what I paid for this down there. No question. This thing's cool. Get my little bookend. What's interesting is you hit the black light. Well, I could maybe show you, but there's phosphorescent glow that come off the areas that are scored here on the hands and the feet. Yeah, I don't think we know anything yet either. Looking at space and the physics and chemistry that goes on inside of our body every day without us even knowing, yeah, we got so much to learn. Yes, I have looked into the tribes of giants, and I think that the tribes of giants, so the giants are likely the Nephilim, which were the product of the gods and the females of human descent mating. And I think that you see Baal and the throne of Baal there on Mount Hermon. Um, you see traces of these beings all over the place. They likely went to the Solomon Islands and different places because they were being persecuted. Likely some of them were in Mexico. They're mentioned in the Bible. There's the Book of Giants, um, but there's also a lot of like uh, conspiracy against giants as well. So it's really like in terms of people trying to hide it, or rumors of skeletons being found. Like there's these ones there in the Mediterranean. I think it's the Solomon Islands, or something like that. But they found all these coffin type things, and there were supposedly bones that they found, and then um, they all disappeared. I'm working on it, Jess. They are working to try to hide it. The more I learn about it, it really fits in, and I think it's really important that we go through all the Bibles, and not just the Christian Bible, but the Hebrew Bible, the Muslim Bible, the you go down to the Orthodoxes versus the Greek Orthodox, the Russian Orthodox. I mean, there is so much religion out there in history. Like it's deep, and being able to compare them, I think, is really important. I bought multiple books, and I'll go through and just read certain things, and some things are really different, and some aren't. But yeah, I don't know, the Nag Hammadi texts, and the book of or the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the Pistis Sophia. Those are really some of my favorite writings. The Pistis Sophia, especially. If you've never checked that one out, it is absolutely incredible. Add me, I'll send you an audio of it, and it's it talks so much about the fallen angels and things. It's really quite great. I don't know, OG. I mean, it's kind of like my car. I mean, it could hurt me just by staring at it, but I trust it most of the time, right? Yeah, it glows. What's crazy is there's even a phosphorescent glow. You can see it. Yeah, you can see it right there for a second. Pretty wild. Not all of them do that, but a fair amount of them do. Oh, that's amazing. Hilarion? Oh, Alan. I'll just call you Alan. Yeah, and it's funny. The Near East thing is exactly what J.J. Hurtak studied. And I think there's a lot of real merit there. The book of what is it? The book of Joel, or no, the book of Job or Joel. One of the two is a Eastern text. I didn't know that, but it's really interesting that it comes from over there. And Jesus was said to possibly go over there, and also, there's, off the coast of Japan, they're finding the lost continent of Mu, and some interesting temples. I spoke with a researcher there that he actually found the Lord's name, the YHWH, engraved on a rock there, right off the coast of. I'm going to mispronounce the name of this place in Japan. I think it starts with an O. I don't want to butcher it, but there's definitely depictions of things like the Nazca lines. Yeah. Oh, have I played frequencies? If you check out Music Regardless, one word, on Bandcamp, OG, I'm a musician. I play the synthesizer, and so I've done like whole songs while I'll play the synthesizer, and I'll hold like one of these pieces in my hand like this, and write a song regarding it, and program a sequence, and do all this. And it's not Okinawa. It's the furthest southern point of Japan, Todd. I can't remember. It might be Okinawa, but I thought it was something different. Yeah, be patient. Patience is so virtue. All these ancient old sayings, it's absolutely spot on, you know? It's crazy. Logic will prevail. Time is money. No, I just threw that one in there. That's not an age-old one. Bambi, it depends on the piece. There's quite a few different. I'm going to tell you that the calcite is the most common in all of these. Like this pine cone here is a majority calcite. Um, a lot of these inlays, like this piece here, has a lot of calcite, but they're metamorphic rocks. You can see the other stone in there. Um, this black stone here it's a type of shallite, I believe it was called. And it's got quartz bands that run through it. You can see um, this stuff here is really interesting. I believe to say this is actually a type of pottery or some sort of material that was in mud at one point and formulated into these shapes. And the reason I say that is because there's the on the surface there's all these pits, but when you break them in half, there is no pits at all. So, um, oh yeah, appreciate that, pal. Or Hawaii. I don't. Your lead speaks above my pay grade. And Shungite's really interesting. I think the Lake Baikal is really really important. That's where all the Shungite comes from, and it's the biggest freshwater lake in the world. It's the only place where this stuff's found. There's been all kinds of crazy things that the Russians have talked about regarding this lake, and I've used shungite quite a bit. I mean, I use it in my water, and I've got it sitting right next to me when I sleep. It's definitely something special. It's just like activated carbon. I mean, it's absolutely something special too. Yeah, it's a black light. Yeah, it is sacred in my opinion, Ken. The only reason it's so sold so cheaply and it's out there is just because there's not a lot of uses for it. That people know of, I guess. And diesel, I've got two different black lights. I've got the 385 and then the 365. The one I've been using mostly tonight's a 365 V3 UV Beast. And then I'll show you the difference here. I've got this guy here too, the 385 version. Um, Big difference on the way the pieces react. I'll show you. So this here is the 385, 395. And the green really reacts well with the 385, 395. But I'll go over here to like the table legs, and you can see it doesn't light up the blue near as much as the other light would. So it's kind of interesting. Yeah, I know. That's why I said that jokingly, Michelle. I'm glad you caught that. I love to play around with that. Yeah, capitalism is broken, and that's why, I love to run a business. I've got two businesses up here in Washington, and I mean, I'm a businessman, no question about it, um, but there's more to it. The unconditional love is the key to successful business. It's the key to good food. It's the key to growing good plants. It's the key to making good music. It's why a lot of artists' albums are great on their first one and then they fall off because they got money. True unconditional love is hard to come by. Just because people love music doesn't mean they're going to invest unconditional love on every album. But the people that do, they sure stand out. No, none of this stuff is for sale, Parasite. I do have some stuff for sale on eBay or on our website. I sell a lot of these like pictures and stuff too. These are metal prints, sublimination prints, really high quality, 60 megapixels. This statue is only about 2.5 inches tall, so you can see the detail that it provides on some of these. It's pretty fun, but Yeah, as far as these big pieces, I'm just researching them right now. Like I'd be a fool to sell them because it needs to be together and it needs to be researched by some that are, you know. No, I didn't know that, Leonard. That's interesting. I'm gonna have to research that as well. I'm gonna screenshot that. Cellulose. Yeah, yeah, Ken, that's a really good point you make there. And I think that's possibly why some people have success overcoming addictions and things with psychedelics. It's not necessarily the drug; it's more so just the perception on life. Um, yeah, Kosh, I don't want to. There's no radioactivity. I've got a Geiger counter here just in case you don't believe me, But I check the stuff when I get it just to make sure. It's beeping on me today. Okay, there we go. Had me worried for a second. But yeah, it doesn't ever tick too high. The weird one is the electromagnetic frequency. I don't know if you were here when I did the tri-field meter, but I'll do it again here just to show you. You hit this on electromagnetics, and I'll walk away from the table here. We're at 3029 here. You can see it just goes crazy. I don't have a scientific explanation of why this occurs. And I don't have a scientific explanation of why some of the guys down there use pendulums to dig out artifacts out of the ground. I've seen multiple dig videos of it with pendulums. I At first they were half dug hole. I didn't believe it. Well, they started giving me evidence that was really believable and using these pendulums. And then I started seeing these pieces come out of depictions using pendulums. And so obviously, it's an interesting thing with the electromagnetic frequencies that these are putting off. Is it possible that it's creating a magnetic anomaly that's causing the pendulum to move in the direction or pull in the direction of the piece? I keep an open mind. I mean, it blows me away if that's the truth, but I just noticed that this guy's eye was weird. Huh, that looks weird, doesn't it? I just got this piece today, so still kind of noticing things. Let me translate you here. And I didn't catch what somebody said about the alien conferences, but I'm definitely going to start probably. I would like to speak at some of these places and at least get people's opinions and maybe talk on panels with other experts to hash this out to some extent, publicly, rather than all behind the scenes and off the books, because that's pretty much most of the people don't want to talk about it. But I think going forward, that's going to be what we have to do. And so I hope to do something like that in the future. I'm going to write a book. Right now, I've got a lot of research that's pending. And once I get these tests back, then I'm going to finish the book and put all this information into a book. And then once I have that, I should be able to do some more public event type stuff. No, I didn't get these at a convention, Zion. I've contacted Gaia, actually, Gma. So there's some interesting things there. I don't know if you're familiar with Emery Smith and Nassim Harriman. Nassim Harriman's kind of got this already with Gaia, and he's choosing to release this his way, and has a lot of really reputable research. Him and Greg Braden both regarding this topic, and so I respect them, and I try to agree with the way they're doing it, even though I'm more of an impatient guy and I don't like to wait, so I like to talk about it now because I might die tomorrow and then all that was a waste of my time. But for them, it's like they have NDA agreements and they're really limited on what they can say and talk about, and so it's it's interesting, but they're really connected with Gaia. They do a lot of specials, and so Gaia just they didn't want anything to do with me as a creator there, at least at this point. Maybe it's too soon. Maybe I go a little bit further. Um, are you talking about Zachariah Stitchin Conscious? I'll have to check that book out, Turquoise. And the Jed Pillar rocker. I will bring it out on one of the next lives. I try to go live like at least once or twice a week. I was doing it there like multiple times, but I have a son that's like 14 months old, and so he gets priority at this point. He's growing up way too fast already, so. But I might just do like a podcast. That way it's streamable on multiple things. People can go back through. The chat's recorded. So I'm looking at different avenues. Right now, TikTok has a great audience, and it gets people, it shows people. It's, tried doing this with YouTube and Instagram. And the algorithms are, I don't know if it's because of the topic. It just seems like they're blocking it somehow. Yeah, it's definitely fascinating for sure. Some of the stuff is really put together on an insane level of craftsmanship. Scott Wolthar, he has the show America Unearthed, and just to kind of give you an example of being premature about things, he, had this big segment about Mexico. He went down to Veracruz. He was able to prove a lot of artifacts as false. And then Mark Russell, who was a guy who did research in Ojuelos, Jalisco. He's a guy I bought in multiple pieces from and done a lot of questioning and interviewing to understand the situation down there. And he was on there. They carbon dated these. They looked at them with electron scopes. They did all the testing and stuff, and came to the conclusion at the end of the show that this was going to change history and blah blah blah. And this was back in 2019. Well, Scott didn't renew America Unearthed 2021, 2020. So there's been no new seasons of this show. And when he's interviewed, he says specifically that he talked to him and asked, "Hey, what's up? Our ratings were better than Ancient Aliens. Why aren't you renewing us?" And the reason they gave him was that his show was too smart for History Channel. Those were their words. So there's more to the story for sure. Yeah, Todd, that's my thing too. Like the time involved to do this is just, and then for two different locations that are 800 miles away to come up with the same idea and the same story with the same characters, yet depicted differently on every level, but also the same. Um, it seems impossible that they would try to compete with the same story. I mean, why not make another one or something? But it's likely that there are real pieces that they're making fakes of and that sort of thing. And that's why you'll hear a lot of people say that these are tourist attractions, because there are a lot of them, and they're probably making them from real ones. But there's also real ones too, and if you get the right provenance with them, uh, I think it's legit. But getting the right provenance down there in Mexico is really tough because you can't just go down there and dig. Even the people can't dig. It's called America Unearthed, Lucky. If you go onto Amazon Prime, 2019 season, I think it's like episode 4 maybe or 5. But it's got that in there. It's called Ancient Mexican Artifacts, I think, or something like that. This piece I find interesting just because it's got the fish on there, which is I had to do quite a bit of research. I always see people rolling around with the Jesus fish on their cars. Didn't truly understand exactly the purpose or where it came from, but it's quite interesting. It's the predecessor of the cross and goes back really, really far. Yeah, Gigi, hang on. Drinking more water. try the radio frequency. Sometimes you get some pretty interesting results there as well. You watch, I'm sorry about the glare. Yeah, you can see the spiking occur a couple times there. The spikes are the weird thing on the radio frequency that happens. What I'd like to get is a frequency band that could detect the 1.8 gigahertz area. If you're familiar with the Skinwalker Ranch, they have some really interesting research experiments that are going there, and the area is just pretty odd. But some of the stuff that they've seen in this 1.8 gigahertz range, I'm curious to see if any of these pieces would either react or produce this frequency at any time. No, I've got the pine cones as well. Yeah, I've got the wristwatches, the pine cones, all the stuff that's depicted, the bend neck staffs. I mean, literally, all of this stuff has been unearthed. And I always asked, like, where in Egypt there's all these things holding these staffs and stuff, but they're never they never have the actual piece. Where's the pieces at? And it's possible that, the things that they were depicting in Egypt didn't even happen in Egypt and was actually happened at an earlier time, and they were documenting it or still utilizing the same, belief system at that time. It's like the game of chess. We found numerous chessboards, um, which is odd. Small ones and large ones. I have one that weighs 150 pounds. Um, and the earliest game of chess, it dates back about 1,500 years to India. And in India, they called it the age-old game of chess. And I found that to be interesting because there was no person that invented it.